14% now. Even though if you look at television, you would think maybe it's almost 50-50.
No.
But it's not true.
But no looking back, only pressing forward. Something must be done. We've become distracted and redirected our potential destinations. We need a revival.
Boland, first African-American female judge in 1939. Gwendolyn Brooks. In 1994, she was chosen as the National Endowment for the Humanities Jefferson Lecturer, one of the highest honors for American literature and the highest award in humanities is given by the federal government.
Hazel Johnson Brown, first African-American woman general appointed in 1979 as chief of the Army Nurse Corps. Shirley Chisholm, in 1968, first black woman elected to the U.S. Congress. Anna, candidate for president of the United States. Angela Davis, a political activist, scholar, and author. Rita Dove, in 1993, became the youngest and first African-American to receive the Poet Laureate appointment. Fannie Lou Hamer, an American voting rights activist and civil rights leader. Lorraine Hansberry, first African-American woman to write a play that's produced on Broadway, which we know is Raising the Sun. Patricia Roberts Harris, first African-American woman to hold a U.S. cabinet position. Zora Neale Hurston, a Harlem Renaissance writer and folklorist who you might know from Eyes Were Watching God. Barbara Charlene Jordan, the first Southern black female elected to the United States House of Representatives. Jackie Joyner Kersee, an Olympic gold medalist, considered one of the greatest athletes in the 20th century for competition in the heptathlon. Mae C. Jameson, MD, the first African-American female astronaut who flew into space aboard the Endeavour. Eleanor Holmes Norton, politician and activist. She served as chair of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission.
Hattie McDaniel, first African-American woman to win an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. Toni Morrison, the first African-American to win a Nobel Prize for Literature. Nina Simone, singer and activist. Mary Church Terrell, daughter of former slave, she was one of the first African-American women to earn a college degree. Sojourner Truth, African-American abolitionist and women's rights activist. Harriet Tubman, African-American abolitionist and humanitarian. She made 13 missions to rescue more than 70 slaves through the Underground Railroad. Alice Walker, first African-American woman to win a Pulitzer Prize for fiction for The Color Purple. Ida B. Wells, African-American journalist, newspaper editor, and early leader in the civil rights movement. She documented the lynchings in the United States. Phyllis Wheatley was one of the pioneer African-American poets. Oprah Winfrey, first African-American to win a syndicated talk show and is now the owner of OWN Network. And finally, Michelle Robinson Obama, our first African-American First Lady of the United States of America.
Working rice plantation, which in 1870 became a garden. We are the oldest public garden in the United States. Reverend John Grimsby Drayton opened Magnolia after the Civil War as a garden. And of course, he gets a lot of credit for that. However, we know that in reality, it is the African Americans who contributed to the development and who sculpted this land. And it is rather interesting that one woman in particular is enshrined in our garden. We have a comedian here named for Tina Gilliard. Tina Gilliard was a reader at Magnolia for 40 years. She was born shortly after the Civil War and died sometime in the early 1900s. And she lived in a cabin which is just adjacent to the ticket kiosk. And it is there where, and it is here where we tell the story of Tina Gilliard, the Bennett family, and others who contributed to the development of this place. I might add, Tina Gilliard's being honored by having a comedian named for her is probably, and this, we're still trying to do some research on this, but as know that media societies across the United States are dominated by wealthy whites. So it's very, very unlikely that an African-American woman would ever have a Canadian name for her, and we're trying to document that. Now, Emily also wanted me to mention something about my book. I wrote a book that was published by Eaton Publishing Company last February, a book called Behind God's Back, and she wanted me to talk about one of the women who I wrote about, and I immediately thought about Eugenia Broughton. When I started doing research over in the Kingpoint, UP, Wando area, and Daniel Island, everybody asked me, you've got to find out who Nurse Broughton was. I was able, through good fortune and the Spirit guided me to Geneva Dansby, who was the art teacher at Buse School in the 1950s. Miss Dansby and Eugenia Broughton are cousins, and they grew up on Dewey Street. And Eugenia Broughton, and also I found quite a bit of records about Eugenia Broughton in the archives at Avery, because she's a graduate of Avery. And after graduating from Avery, she went on and worked over in the Berkeley County, particularly in the lower part of Berkeley County, providing healthcare services to people there long before people had access to the hospitals in downtown Charleston.
This week, Don Cornelius died. He is certainly a pioneer in the television and entertainment world. The most recent incident of that is this interesting program, NBA Wives. NBA Wives, you would imagine that these are the wives of the richest people, young men in America. They talk about things of no substance. Exactly. And here these people are the, quote, images of what affluent people, they're the wives or girlfriends or something of the richest young men in America. Maybe they're not billionaires, but they're the closest thing that we know to it. And so this is for young women who are looking for
money don't make the person.
Images or idea models to mimic. What can we do as people to give a more positive? Here, this is a businesswoman, up and coming businesswoman. She's not going to be on a national program for young women to listen to. They're going to be cussing and slapping and discussing. This, in my opinion, and I don't watch it all the time. I get tired. What did you do about it?
Turn off the television. Don Cornelius and Soul Train, I think, is a good example of someone who looked out onto the television landscape and saw no representations of Black people, particularly Black youth, other than as sort of visions of urban unrest and criminals. And so what Don Cornelius was attempting to do with Soul Train was offer a different story of Black people, a different story of Black music. The difficulty happens with Soul Train and with Basketball Wives is that, that Soul Train and this VH1 show becomes not something that's a story for Black people, but something that's a story for the consumption of mainstream America, right? And so what happens, of course, is that mainstream America will reward foolishness. They will reward, right, those women on Basketball Wives are getting paid very well to be on television acting the fool. And for many people, it is hard to turn down that money. What we can do, I think, as myself, I have a 6-year-old and an 11-year-old daughter, and what we can do, I think, for young people is offer them different stories and different stories that are local stories, right? So that rather than looking for models of behavior, models of womanhood and manhood out in the world on television, look for models that right in your neighborhood, in your home, at your school, right in your community. Right? How are you going to learn how to be a person in the world? You're not going to learn it from VH1. You're not going to learn it from MTV. You're not going to learn it from the NFL, right? You're going to learn it from the people that you encounter every single day, and we have to endeavor to be the kind of people we want our children to grow up to be.